The wind howled across the barren plains as dusk bled into the horizon, painting the sky in faded gold and rust-red streaks. The air smelled of dust, gunpowder, and sorrow, a scent that had long clung to the bones of the Wild West. Hank Dalton reined in his tired horse, squinting toward the faint outline of a cabin in the distance. Smoke curled from its crooked chimney, thin as a dying man's breath. He hadn't planned to stop, but the day had been long, and the ache in his chest felt heavier than the revolver at his hip. When he reached the porch, a woman stepped out. She held a shotgun, but her hands trembled too much to make good use of it. Her eyes, gray like a storm that had forgotten how to rain, locked on him. "Evenin', ma'am," Hank said quietly, raising a hand. "Name's Dalton. Hank Dalton. Just lookin' for a place to rest my horse, maybe a cup of water before I move on." The woman didn't lower the gun. "You law, not anymore," he said. "Just a man passin' through." She studied him for a long moment before sighing and lowering the weapon. "There's water by the trough. Come on in, if you mean no harm." He tied his horse and stepped into the cabin. It was small and plain. One table, 2 chairs, a pot bubbling faintly over the fire. The scent of beans filled the air, humble and warm. "You live out here alone?" Hank asked. "Me and my daughter," she replied. "Name's Clara. My little girl's asleep. She's 7. He nodded. The silence between them was fragile, filled with the crackle of fire and the whisper of wind against the wood. After a while, Clara spoke again, her voice quieter. "You look like a man who's run a long way." "I have," Hank said. "Too many ghosts behind me." She gave a small, sad smile. "Ain't we all?" He ate the beans she served him, each spoonful tasting like something he hadn't felt in years, kindness. When he tried to pay her, she shook her head. "Keep your coins. You look like you need 'em more than I do." He was about to leave when thunder cracked across the open land. A storm rolled in fast, rain slicing the sky. Clara looked out the window. "You won't make it far tonight. You can stay in the barn." Hank hesitated, but the truth was, he didn't want to leave. "Not yet. Much obliged, ma'am," he said. That night, the storm howled like an old god in pain. Hank lay on a bed of hay, staring up at the beams of the barn roof, thinking of all the nights he'd spent alone under the stars. And for the first time in years, he wondered what it would feel like not to be alone. When morning came, Clara was already outside, splitting wood. Her hair was damp from the mist, and the pale sun caught on her cheekbones. She looked strong, but tired, like someone who had been fighting too long without backup. "Your man around?" Hank asked carefully. She stopped, wiping sweat from her brow. "Died 2 winters ago. Fever took him fast." Her voice cracked slightly. "He left me a farm that don't grow, a horse that won't pull, and a daughter who still asks why her daddy ain't comin' home." Hank nodded, not trusting himself to speak. That evening, Clara invited him to supper again. Little Mary, her daughter, sat at the table, her big eyes curious and shy. She giggled when Hank tipped his hat at her. "You're a real cowboy," she said. "Used to be," he replied with a grin. "Now I'm just a man who gets lost easy." After supper, Mary fell asleep by the fire while Hank and Clara sat in the quiet. "You could stay a while," Clara said softly. "This land's big, but it feels smaller with 2 people to tend it." He looked into her eyes. "I don't deserve peace, Clara. I've done things a good man wouldn't do." "Then maybe it's time you did something a good man would," she whispered. The next few days, Hank helped fix the fence, mend the roof, and bring in what little crops they had. Each day felt like sunlight on old scars. Mary followed him around, laughing, calling him Mr. Cowboy. But one night, as he was putting away the tools, 2 men rode up. Dusty, mean-looking, the kind who lived by the gun. Hank's hand went instinctively to his revolver. "Dalton," one of them spat. "Heard you been hidin' out here." Clara stepped out onto the porch. "Who are they?" "Old trouble," Hank said. The taller of the men smirked. "You took something that wasn't yours, Dalton. We've come to take it back, or take your hide instead." Hank's eyes hardened. "You already took enough from me. Leave." They laughed. "Not without blood." The fight was quick and brutal. Thunder cracked again, but this time, it was the sound of guns. When it was over, one man lay dead in the mud. The other rode off, wounded, cursing Hank's name. Clara rushed out, tears streaking her face. "You're hurt." "Just a graze," he muttered, clutching his arm. She helped him inside, pressing a cloth to the wound. Her hands trembled as she worked. "You brought danger here," she whispered. "I know," he said. "And I'm sorry." She turned away, her voice breaking. "Mary's all I got. I can't lose her too." He wanted to tell her he understood. That he'd once lost a daughter of his own, years ago, to sickness while he was off chasing bounties. That the guilt had followed him like a shadow ever since. But the words stuck in his throat. The next morning, he saddled his horse. Clara stood by the porch, arms crossed tight against her chest. "You're leavin', then?" she asked. "I have to," he said quietly. "Men like me, we don't get to stay." Mary ran out, clutching a little wooden horse he'd carved her. "Don't go, Mr. Cowboy." He crouched, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You listen to your mama, sweetheart. She's the strongest woman I ever met." He looked up at Clara. "Your daughter needs a home," he said softly. "And my bed, it needs you. But the truth is, I don't deserve either." She reached out, touching his cheek with trembling fingers. "Maybe you do, Hank. Maybe you just don't believe it yet." He wanted to stay. God, he wanted to. But the past doesn't let go easy. He rode away before dawn, leaving only hoofprints and the faint echo of what might have been. Weeks passed. The harvest came late that year, and Clara worked the land harder than ever. Some nights, she'd stand on the porch, looking out over the plains, hoping to see a lone rider appear on the horizon. One morning, she woke to the sound of hoofs. Her heart leapt, and there he was. Hank Dalton, weary but alive, a quiet smile under his unshaven face. "Thought you might need help bringin' in that crop," he said. Clara laughed, tears spilling freely this time. "You're late, cowboy. Story of my life," he said, stepping down from his horse. That evening, as the sun sank into the earth and the sky blazed orange and gold, Hank sat beside her on the porch. Mary played in the yard, her laughter mingling with the wind. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "You think you'll stay this time?" He smiled faintly. "If you'll have me." She took his hand, fingers lacing through his. "Then welcome home, Hank Dalton." And for the first time in a long, long while, the Wild West felt a little less wild. The land still whispered of ghosts and dust, but now, it also whispered of love.